Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Dreamteam podcast. It's Jay Moneyball Hellaby here, and I've got Matt Harvey and Nathan Banksy Banks with me. And we've just finished up round 3 last night with the Rabbitohs going head-to-head in a rather clumsy match with the Sharks. And it's good to have you boys back. How are we doing?
Good yourself?
Cruising along.
Yeah, not too bad.
I was going to say, have we got Banksy here? You sounded like you disappeared for a moment there. Now,
I was just letting old Matt have a discussion after missing last week's show.
Let him get a few words in up front, eh?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
How gentlemanly of you,
That's it. Well, it was a bit of a horror week this week in Dream Team, but we've got to give a couple of shout-outs to some blokes from Mentors who have been doing exceptionally well. First off, Banksy, it's Dave. What's Dave's last name, mate?
Pigeons, I think.
Dave Piggins, yeah, from Mendes. He's 9th overall after 2 weeks of competition. Well done, Dave. That's a huge effort, particularly in the early stages to be putting in consistent performances, you know, when it's a bit of a crapshoot in these first 5 rounds. And our other shout-out has to go to my mate, Adrian Butters, who was 11th for the week in this particular round. And just put together a very nice, consistent side, broke the 800 mark, and there's not too many of us that can say that.
No, there isn't. I haven't done that yet. I'm looking forward to break to 1,000 later in the year, hopefully. Scoring doesn't stick too low.
You're going to come home strong, mate.
You're always going to come home strong.
How did you end up scoring last week, Banksy?
I scored a abysmal 676 at it.
Oof.
It's like 10,000th overall.
Ouch. What about you, Harvey?
I chalked up 718.
Nice.
1,464.
And anything over that 700 mark was definitely a good score this week. I hit 700 flat myself, and to be honest with you, after the week that was, I was quite happy to claim it. But I want to share with you boys just a bit of an anecdote that did happen on the Mentors Facebook page throughout last week, sort of before the round started. Butters, Adrian Butters, who's a fantastic contributor, he's one of the highest contributors on the site, if not the highest. Put an opinion piece up on a little bit of Dream Team strategy, you know, thinking about your trades and you know, how to structure your side. And about halfway down the comments list, he started getting ripped into by a couple of people who, you know, are going on about him always going on with the same stuff and that. And if you read it, it's not always the same stuff. There's a similar underlying strategy to it all. But and I must say, as much as I love Butters, I don't always agree with his opinion. He and I have some fantastic raging debates, but there's always a lot of respect. You know, I definitely respect his opinion because I know it's always well thought out and always well researched. But one of the comments that came to mind from one of these blokes who was getting stuck into him is he turned around and he said to Butters, mate, when you score big and you rank high in the top 100, then we'll friggin' listen to you. And Adrian Butters, 11th for the round this week. So if you've got a hat, whoever that bloke was, I suggest you should probably be eating it right about now.
That's very cool.
You got to love it when they get their comeuppance.
Yeah, Butters deserves every one of those words.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Look, when you get a keyboard warrior, you've got to love it, and when they get spanked by karma, it's great to see. Alrighty, let's move on to the discussion of only the second round of the season, and what a horror. What a horrible week. We've got injuries left, right and centre. We've got guns just misfiring, and gambles that turned up spades for the house. What do you reckon, boys? What were your moments of the week that just were absolutely cringeworthy?
Where do you start? Willis Brown 16 was nasty.
Yes, yep, that one hurt. A few errors in that, including a beautiful falcon across the bridge of the nose.
Tony Williams 28 also hurt me very much.
Yeah, T-Rex. You know what the problem is with a T-Rex playing rugby league, don't you?
Little arms.
It's the short arms, mate. He's got no hope.
The little arms.
That's it. How about you, Banksy? What were your moments of horror, mate?
Seeing Toa Harris's 50 sitting dutifully on that bench after last week leaving Nathan Smith's 47 on there. It just really irks me. I can't get these guys at the right time.
So
Brother, I
who
gotta...
are you leaving out of your team this week?
I would just say, Matt, sorry?
Who are you leaving out of your team this week? I want to get on them.
If you want to know who I'm putting out,
Yeah.
get on Tim Manor. Get on Tim Manor.
Look, I gotta say, Banksy, mate, I'm right there with you, brother. I left Harris on my MPRs, had Smith in the side and Papali, and the two of them couldn't score as much as what Harris pumped out by himself. So I'm right there with you, feeling your pain, brother.
I know.
That one was painful.
It is.
I think for me, Lachlan Coote ripping his bicep, gone for the season. He was looking good as a moderate sort of, wing fullback point of difference that would sort of grow in value and let me bring in a gun later. And, not to mention the 4 that he scored. Obviously, I'm gutted about the Dreamteam score, but we've got to remember that somebody's just ripped their bicep out or their pectoral muscle out. So we can't be too bummed out about a score when they're in agony. But that one hurt me. That one really did. And then Josh Papali, I was at the Titans-Raiders game, and I was praying to see some big pupper action. And, mate, he just looked absolutely disinterested, didn't want to be there, and pumped out a measly 24 for something like 70 minutes worth of work. And, mate, if I was getting paid $300,000 a year to play footy, I can promise you right now, I would not be sitting there watching my teammates get flogged 36-0.
Yeah, we'll move you on.
Yeah, it's Cade Snowden syndrome. Sign the contract and switch off.
Oh.
Just for the best of them.
Yep. So this week, lads, we reckon we're going to see improvement. Where do you think you'll see it in the players that you're keeping and not suffering trade rage?
Well, mine has to be Cameron Smith. A 51 as a captain isn't good enough. He should return to his 70 ways, especially on a nice night that will be on Thursday night. He plays this week against the Bulldogs, so should be good. Also, Sonny Bill Williams should actually rip somebody apart, and he should score that 70 this week. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's Sonny Bill, mate. Who are the Roosters playing this week?
They have somebody known as the Broncos.
Oh, mate, Sonny Bill should destroy the Broncos, especially considering what they've been like in the last couple of weeks, although their performance against the Dragons was vastly improved, particularly on the defensive side, and they definitely put in 80 minutes of football.
They did. But they'll probably run at Prince all day, won't he, and just tuck off him.
Mate, that's exactly what I'd tell my 5-year-old son to do.
Hopefully we'll see some nice offloads and tackle busts, maybe a try or two from Sonny Bill.
Yep,
Nice
absolutely.
To see him score at 70.
It would. I think we're also hanging out for that, and I'd love to see Maloney step up as well. I think that there's some real potential there. Matty, how about you, mate? What are you seeing as the big areas of improvement for you?
Well, I need Lewis Brown to step it up from measly 16, especially against the English and his Rabbitohs.
Mm-hmm.
Should definitely put a few more points on the 16 this week. And speaking of English, hopefully he steps it up against the Panthers and scores more than 38. As we all know, he can do 60s and 70s, so let's see it coming up.
Yeah. Speaking of 60s and 70s in your wing fullback position, Michael Gordon, how good was he for the Sharks last night?
He was really good. I like to see that bus when he put the step on in this. Oh God, he got about 30 Dream points from that.
Oh yeah,
lovely to watch.
And I mean, you don't step Inglis easily either. Like that was quality right there.
It is quality. He's a very quality player. I didn't actually know he was 29 years old. I thought he was like 25, 26. So that surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I know he's had a couple of really rough seasons, with broken legs and ACLs and all that sort of stuff. So it's good to see him healthy. It's good to see him fit, and it's good to see him playing some good football. And at that 285,000, um, if you don't have him, I think you know what I'm going to say next.
Doesn't work. Give yourself an uppercut.
That's the one. That's we'll get there, boys. I'm just looking for you to feed off me. I'll set him up and you can knock him down.
I was trying to. I was trying to punch myself in the uppercut, but the beard got in the way, so it was like muffled.
Oh no, mate! Oh, and you're telling me you don't have Gordo? My goodness.
No, I do.
Oh, that's
Honestly,
all right.
I do.
You just wanted to try the uppercut yourself. Yeah, that's all right then. All right. Well, this week, guys, what we're going to be having a chat about is overall Dream Team strategy. Next week, we're going to get into head-to-head, but this week we'll have a look at overall strategy. I'm not sure if I'm too happy about this, but Banksy, you've decided to look at my Dream Team side and pull that apart for the overall strategy, and we're going to have a couple of look at a couple of trades that I'm thinking of making this week. Banksy, mate, what do you reckon? So this is you've got my side there. So for those who don't know, I've got Cam Smith and Robbie Farah in the hooker position, Brenton Lawrence, Aidan Tolman is my starting front row forward, with George Gorgeous Burgess and Jack Buchanan as my backups. Sonny Bill Williams, Gavin Cooper, Josh Papali, Nathan Smith, Tohu Harris, and Bodine Thompson in my second row forwards. James Maloney, Kurt Gidley, Albert Kelly, and Jacob Miller in my halves. Jamal Idris, who scored 44, raising my middle finger to everybody who was bitching about Idris. Lewis Brown, Drury Lowe, and Michael G. Cam in the centre position. Then Michael Gordon, Will Zillman, Lachlan Coote, Daniel Tupu, and Anthony Don from the Titans in the wing fullback position. So, mate, what's your take on this side that I've put together?
Well, going off points alone, it's better than mine. But looking at it, I think mine has more potential to move. But in saying that, it's in a very good position as it is. It's got the strongest hooker pairing you could have in Farah and Smith. I would not be touching that at all if you got those two.
Yeah, no.
Even if you think, oh, I'll trade down Smith to Sigiaro or somebody like that. I'm not too sure who else is there. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's worth it, because you want Cameron Smith there, you want Robbie Farah there if they're both gunning.
Absolutely.
You also got your front row forward. You got your front row forwards too, which you got Tolman, which is a great player for your buys. Thinking about overall, Brenton Lawrence is getting great minutes, which means he's getting great points. And it's good to see him scoring a lot. George Burgess was a little bit disappointing last night. Wasn't as explosive or as busy, but that's probably due to the handling errors from both teams. Buchanan should be looking much last week, with Galloway now gone from the season as well.
Yeah.
So again, the front row I see is very strong in your team. I would not touch it this week.
Yep, and that's a fair call. Like it's the whole idea of this front row. When I picked it, Brenton Lawrence was to give me that point of difference, and I always knew that his overall points per minute were very good. He had huge raps on him coming out of the Titans. He was just behind a lot of forwards going to Manly, so there was always a good chance of good minutes down there. And the word I'm hearing out of Manly is he's ahead of a number of people in as far as Tubi's thinking goes. My plan for Tolman is once Graham comes back, I'll sub Tolman out for Marin, who's going to consistently pump out the 40s and 50s, while making some cash off Gorgeous George and Jack Buchanan for just spending elsewhere later on.
Yeah, it's a very good strategy there. But thinking about overall, would you really want... I know Tolman will see a reduced workload once Graham comes back in week 9, I think it is. But do you really want to trade Tolman out then just before buys for Merritt, who will probably play Origin? And I think the Dragons don't have really good Origin buys either. Whilst Tolman probably won't play Origin, has great buys for not playing Origin. It means he'll have all 5 rounds of the buys with him sitting in your front row forward.
Yeah, and look, that's a really great point. It is in the back of my mind, that maybe I'm not going to want to trade Tolman out at that point in time. And it's something I'm going to have to look at closer to the time because of those buys and because of the potential that or the huge chance that he's not going to play Origin. that depends heavily on what Brenton Lawrence is doing at that time, what, where George Burgess and Jack Buchanan are at that time, if I have or haven't already traded them out, to free up some cash, and what else is happening around the place, because there are a few players that I could potentially bring in that will do the same as what Tolman is and potentially score more and give me that flexibility, but do I want to burn the trade at that point as well? And that's something, it's the reason I've got Tolman there, and the reason why I dropped Merrin last week to free up that cash, and we sort of mentioned about bringing in Sonny Bill and a couple other things on last week's show, was in the back of my mind, Tolman did give me those good buys. He was unlikely to be playing Origin, whereas Merrin was likely to be playing Origin and had those horrible buys. So, taking the price difference out of it, Merrin being 50,000 more, Tolman gave me that greater flexibility when the time comes to make that decision.
Yeah, you've summed it up quite well there, and that's what you'll be definitely careful of, especially trading in keeper front row forwards. If you're trading in any keeper at this stage of the year, you're definitely going to have those buys in mind. Any cash cow, you can kind of forget about the buys, but when you cash them out, you've got to be very wary who you're bringing in with that cash, making sure they are buy friendly if you want to succeed over those buy period.
Yeah. And it is important. It is important to get through that buy period, not at the top, but definitely by staying in touch with the main pack and staying in touch with the top 100 for sure.
You definitely top 100. You also need, if you have trades in hand going out of those buys, like 3 or 4 or 5, you're in a really good position, I think you are, to really make a good push for that trip to England.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on to our second row, we're looking at Sonny Bill Williams, Gavin Cooper, Josh Papali, Nathan Smith, Tohu Harris, and Bodang Thompson.
Yeah, I'm liking this one. I'm liking that you got Smith and Harris here. Those are your two obvious cash cows at your very cheap price. I'd say if you don't have them, uppercut yourself. Bodang Thompson's kind of sitting there doing nothing after being dropped that first week. He provides centre switcheroo, which you have for Brown, and I think you're talking about bringing in Mitchell Alderson or even Teo later on in the show, so that gives you another option to switch down there and bring those guys up to your second row if you need be. But Gavin Cooper and Papali are those two holes in your team which I think need to come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seeing that I have Cooper myself, I'm leaning more towards trading up Papali. Like you said, you were there at the game last week and you said he looked lazy, he wasn't interested in the game. And that has me thinking you should really drop him this week. There's a whole plethora of options in that second row forward that have very low break-evens that you don't have.
Yeah.
There's a few of them, like Jacob Lilliman, who has a minus 25 break-even for 200k, scored a 47 and a 40.
Lilliman, I believe, is injured, mate.
Okay. But plus he's a warrior, and plus I don't really see him as a 45-point scorer as he's producing it because of historical stats don't say that he's that type of player.
Yeah.
You have Orbison there too, you have Ryan James, you have Gillette, you have Brewer too, which all could come in and fill a nice big hole, fill a nice hole, score more points, or roughly the same amount of points that Papali would get and give you cash to spend elsewhere.
Yeah. Look, and a couple of those options you mentioned, like a lot of people have gone with Jamie Buer at the beginning of the year, and I sort of stayed away from him just because a lot of other people had him, and I wanted to have some point of differences. Papali was meant to be my point of difference. I went with my gut on that. I sort of felt that, he would want to earn his money, and he'd have a big year, particularly with the niggles around Fensom. Now, Fensom, I think, played close to 80 minutes last week, and Papali played 70-odd or 65, something like that. But he didn't look interested. So as far as a point of difference goes, Papali is proving to be a point of defeat, really, because if he's my point of difference, then I'm going to get flogged. Particularly, later down the line where it really does become important to make sure you've got your points of difference right, and a couple of points could mean a hell of a lot. So I'm thinking Papali's got to go this week. Cooper gets a stay of execution as a result of Lachlan Coote's injury. the options. I'm liking Gillette. I'm liking Mitchell Orbison. I'm also liking Ryan Hoffman at the Storm. What are your thoughts on Hoffman? He's pumped out some good scores these last few weeks.
Yeah, he has. He's been a very consistent scorer. He's a consistent scorer last year too, at the end of the season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And, with the cash, like I've got $49,300 in the bank. So with the cash difference, there's only $3,000 difference between Hoffman and Papali. And so that wouldn't impact particularly much. I could still bring Orbison in the centres, but it would mean running Daniel Tupou or Drury Lowe in my wing fullback position for at least a week.
Yeah, that is definitely an option which could pay off at the end, because if you get Hoffman now, you get 50-point scores each week by the looks of it. He's a very good scorer. I love that he scored. Had a nice little bet on him at the TAB. 2-scorer try. Not a nice little return for myself. But he pumps out 25 tackles a week. He does 100-plus metres a week too. He gets tackle busts. He sets up tries with offloads and does line breaks and line breaks. Well, not line break. He does try assists as well. He's kind of a complete all-round back rower for the Storm at the moment, especially if Proctor not there and a youngster in Harris there, and also Hinchcliffe, who's more of a hooker. He's definitely getting 80 minutes, I think, from memory. He's definitely a person to look at.
Yeah, he's getting plenty of minutes, but he gives I feel he gives my back row that long-term strength. He's unlikely to play Origin. Storm's buys aren't particularly great, but you know that Hoffman's workload's only going to increase over that Origin period with Smith out, because, there's suddenly a whole lot of tackling that's not being done with the absence of Cam Smith.
Yeah, you'll definitely see Cam Smith go out. You'll probably see, because I think the Storm have 2 buys, 1 buy during Origin and 2 buys when they have to play during without the Origin stars and the main 3, and maybe a few others who might get selected. But I don't know who that might be, because I've lost Nielsen. But he will definitely pick up the slack with but Proctor will be back by then. You would think that Hinchcliffe will move to the hooker with no, what's his name, Jason in there too. So
yeah.
So Hoffman will be a decent scorer, a decent point of difference. But is it worth having that, just pushing that guy Papali to him, getting that point of difference, getting that money, getting that points, but not getting any money out of the trade? And with the rest of your team, you might need that money later on to upgrade some of these cash cards to your guns. And I think there's points to be made in these 250-odd K players. It's another 60, 70K you've got there to play with for a little bit longer, and it could well be the difference between getting an English or getting a dud.
Yeah, and look, that is a very, very fair point. The interesting thing is, I've just had a quick look. Gillette is actually owned by well over 10% of teams. Orbison and Hoffman are owned by slightly over 5%. So Orbison and Hoffman present a far greater point of difference than what, say, Gillette would.
Yeah, that does do that too. But you're also talking about Orbison in your second round, your centres as well, and replacing that Coot via that switch, and then using that money you hopefully would gain from trading out either Gavin Cooper next week, or you've gained from Papali this week.
Well, let's have a quick look at that and what the side would look at if we did that. Let's say we drop out Papali and we bring in Mitch Orbison in that second row forward position. Okay, so we pick up 60 grand. I think it's about 62 when all's said and done, right? So we'll just make this trade right now. As soon as don't you love it when you're doing things in the show, on air, and the computer decides to run slow as all hell?
Oh, that sucks. So you got 62K from there, and you have about 50K sitting there, so you have 112K in your bank now to play with.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Injured Coot.
And an injured Lachlan Coote, who's 270K. So suddenly I'm looking down the barrel of 390K round figures. Not quite enough to go with an Inglis this week.
This week, yeah.
This week, okay. But could potentially be enough to go with like if we could upgrade later down the line. Now, if I went the other way, so we're looking at this, we've got 111,300. Okay, we now look at trading out Lachlan Coote, because obviously he's out for the season, guys. That's the official word from the Panthers and NRL. Lachlan Coote is done and dusted for the season. He's going into surgery over the next couple of days, so we're not going to see him. So we're looking down the barrel of 383,000 in that particular position, and we'll just use our filters on assistant coach. Love my assistant coach, and the options that we have here, are Billy Slater, Jorge Tafua, or George Tafua, as they say. Josh Mansour. They're the ones that really stand out sort of above and beyond the rest that can be afforded in that bracket. Billy Slater's appealing, but Billy Slater's origin. And Billy Slater, if the Storm have an off game or anything like that, Slater's scores are absolutely in the garbage. He ranges from that 15 right through to 80. And can be quite inconsistent.
You can be. Also looking at my assistant coach, and if you haven't brought it, you don't have to buy it, but I recommend you using your trial this week and next week, because it's probably the most important time of the year. That's what I've done, unless you've already used it like I'll call you an idiot whilst I'm doing air quotes, sorry. Right at the start of the season with no numbers to play, with no break-evens apart from the random generated stuff.
Just quickly letting you know, Banksy, podcasts typically, particularly the style that we're doing, they're typically a audio medium, so they're not going to see your inverted quotes, mate.
That's why I talked about them for.
All right, so back on task, it's like the ADHD kid leading the ADHD kid. Who else have we got, mate, that we can even look at here? There's a lot of averages that are plummeting low. Look, he's averaging 38, and he's in a Cowboys team that is very, very strong. He's looking at going up, but look, I just don't have a lot of faith in wingers.
Yeah, that is true too. It's also I'd pick Mansour on that same fact too. You saw what happened with Uwate and Korobi the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm just going to chime in here on that Mansour comment. But the fact that year before, not this year, last year, Mansour was playing a lot of winging, and he was still scoring 40s and 50s because he comes in looking for that work. So I wouldn't be putting Mansour out of it yet.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Matty, because I did watch that Tigers-Panthers game as much as I could, and one thing I did see is Mansour did come into centre field a lot of the time, particularly that first tackle after a kick return and look for a lot of work, and he did make a few tackle breaks at that point. In fact, I think he made 12 tackle breaks in this last game or thereabouts.
That sounds about right from him.
Yeah. So, look, maybe we are too harsh on Mansour. Maybe, there is the potential there that he could be a viable option at 309,000.
He's definitely a risky option at that price.
He is, look, and that's, you've got to feel that way about any winger that sort of comes in. But if we go back and we look at this and go with, let's say, the Hoffman trade, and then bring in Orbison down in the centres, okay, that gives a lot of options. And I know you're thinking long-term, right? You're looking at going, what about long-term? What about long-term? You're going to hurt yourself long-term. But let's just do it, and I'll talk through a bit of a strategy that's rolling around in my head for that long-term scenario, because we need to have a look at the full picture. And again, the computer's running slow. So what we do is let's go Papali to Ryan Hoffman.
Yep.
Okay, so we got 52K in the bank. And then what we do is we take Lachlan Coote, we sub Drury Lowdown for Coote. That gives us 324,000. And then we bring in Mitch Orbison. into that centre position via Drury Low. Okay? That leaves us 66 grand in the bank. So we've still got 66k sitting there. Wish it was earning interest. Hey, there's an idea, Lone Scout, if you're ever listening. Get us some interest on our cash that's sitting in the bank, mate. Now,
That would be good.
it would, wouldn't it? But anyway. All right, so let's get Nathan Smith off because we want a back line of Williams, Cooper, Ryan Hoffman. We'll uncheck our reserves for the moment, except for Cameron Smith and Albert Kelly, because they pretty much picked themselves at this point in time of the season. I've now put the mockers on both of them. Oh, sorry, Cameron Smith is captain this week, so it's Robbie Farah. Yep. No, I just hit the reverse trades button, so that all went back. Okay, so we've got Farah and Kelly. Now, we've got Orbison in the centre position, which brings Lewis Brown into the MPRs. Now, our options, or I should say my options, for running with this side now, for my last two reserve positions are George Burgess, Jack Buchanan, Nathan Smith, Tohu Harris, Jacob Miller, Lewis Brown, Drury Low. Now, Drury Low is just way too inconsistent, and I come back to my earlier comment of lack of faith in wing fullback positions. Lewis Brown, he scored a 32 and a 16. So, as far as consistency's there, I'm a little bit hesitant. Jacob Miller, a 29 and a 7. Again, a little hesitant there. Tohu Harris, a 19 and a 50. But we also know that Tohu Harris scored a 53 in the World Club Challenge. So that puts it 53, 19, 50, and there were a lot of errors in that 19. Nathan Smith has scored a 47 and a 23. Jack Buchanan, a 48 and a 23. George Burgess, a 65 and a 21. Going on that, who would you pick as your last two reserves?
I would go for my tried and true method would be Nathan Smith, because he's been there, done that. You would expect good points from him against Souths. And then maybe George Burgess against the Panthers could cause some havoc. So he could be a nice risk, but Jack Buchanan starting, you would assume with Galloway out would be my fourth pick.
You reckon?
Nathan Smith and Jack Buchanan.
Yeah,
Buchanan has to be in the side with Galloway out. It's not maybe that he has to be in there. He's pretty well.
And the other thing is too, Tohu Harris up against the Bulldogs. You've kind of got to look at it and wonder if he's going to be able to pump out a 50 against the Bulldogs. Having said that, he pumped out a 50 against the Cowboys, and they're not mugs.
No, they're not. He did 31 tackles, and he got 120 metres and 3 tackle busts he did for 9 points.
Yeah.
As well as a line break.
Yeah. So there's a bit of consideration there. So personally, I think between Tohu Harris and Jack Buchanan, it's a bit of a coin toss this week.
Yeah, probably is. I'm looking at Buchanan as a starter for my team after I've done my trades, so.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Definitely going towards them.
Now, looking at this long term, we've got Orbo in the centres. Okay, now if Orbo keeps his current form, we're never going to move him out of the centres, right? Orbo and Idris, boom, thank you very much, centres sorted for the year. But we're fairly strong across the board, except our wing fullback position. We've got Michael Gordon, we've got Will Zillman, who pumped out a 43, but we know that Zilly can be 25 one week and 100 the next. So that's going to be a little bit iffy, but I'm keeping him because I'm a Titans supporter and I love Zillman. He's a top bloke and I think he's about to have a big year. But that leaves us with Daniel Tupou on the wing. I've jumped ahead and chosen Tupou over Drury Low. I've seen the bloke play. He's 6'5" and he is strong. He is fast, and I think we're going to see a lot of action from him as the Roosters look to go to his side with the kicks and just see him tear things up. That's a very big weak spot at this stage of the season in my wing fullback position, yeah? That a fair comment?
That is a fair comment.
Okay. One round of that, then I've got 60 plus grand plus a few price rises coming in order to upgrade that if I need to do that, which also means that I can do a double trade to bring a gun in. So if I needed to, I could drop Lewis Brown out of my centre position to a Nufty, and then upgrade Daniel Tupu or Drury Lowe, to someone who's in that mid sort of 250, 260,000 range. There's a number of different options to bring up the money. And then again, Daniel Tupou could score well, and I keep him an extra week.
Yeah, he could do. He scored 26 in the weekend. He scored, what would that be? That would have been 16 the week before. So he isn't a mug.
Yeah.
But he isn't that gun.
He's not that gun, and occasionally he's going to pump out a 35 or 40 when the Roosters have an amazing game. I hope it's going to be next week. But, at the same time, I'm prepared at this point to cop Tupu getting a low score, and being that weak spot in order to strengthen up, the other spots that I have in my side.
I think you'd be right to do that because you're fixing up the rest of your team and weakening it for 1 week. And next week you'll be fixing it up. You've got Gavin Cooper who can trade out down to a 250k, 300k. There's another 70k you've got right there, and you can go and upgrade Don, Chicam, Lowe, or whoever you want to another player that you can play full-time at the wing fullback position.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, if let's say next week we look at Gavin Cooper to say a Matt Gillette or a Jamie Burer, or there's a few players who are fitting into that particular slot at the moment in that mid 200k range for value. Assuming Coops doesn't perform well, suddenly, if we're dropping down to that mid 200k, that's an extra 100k. Suddenly we've got 166k to play with, and we upgrade Lewis Brown to somebody, there are a few options there that we can potentially use.
There is, you can push Lewis Brown. If you push Lewis Brown, who should get a price range, I think he will, and you get 160 odd K, you can push him to a Slater, you can push him to one of those guns, which I'm not too sure because I haven't looked at them too well. In that wing fullback position, there's
a few options. You won't be able to get to Hayne unless he drops massively. You won't be able to get to English yet. But then again, you hold on for a couple more weeks and maybe take the hits, particularly if Tupou does well, or maybe there's another young gun coming through that you drop Cooper for, or something to that effect. And you can get an English, or maybe English drops in price, or Hayne drops in price, and you can bring one of those blokes in. So it gives you the options. You've limited your exposure to the potential inconsistent or low scores, but at the same time, you've been able to strengthen up a couple of spots massively. Ryan Hoffman over Josh Papali is a huge pick, and Mitch Orbison over Lewis Brown at the moment. With Brown sort of being a bit up and down, we know he is going to pump out some good scores every now and again, but Orbo looks back to his old school form.
He does, and also I'll probably take Tupu over Brown anyway.
Oh, look, yeah. You mean over Drury Lowe?
No, I mean Lewis Brown.
Lewis Brown, yeah.
Taking Tupu over Lewis Brown after last week's scores.
Mate, I was just impressed with how he played. I think he looked very, very good. And I just got to say a huge sorry to Matt Harvey because we've just ruined his point of difference in this discussion. We won't mention who it is that is the point of difference, but we have ruined it by bringing it up. He's a little bit upset. That's why he's been so quiet, sitting in the corner. He's stewing there.
He's sulking after the 3-2-0 loss.
Yeah, that always hurts.
Sorry, Harvey, you're a Raiders fan, are you?
Oh, 32. He's a Knights fan.
Oh, right, 32. Yeah. I was going to say. Yeah, that's right. You're Newcastle. Yeah. All good. Alrighty, so that's the overall strategy. I guess we've sort of gone on a little bit longer than normal about this particular strategy and the thinking that goes in behind it. There's no science to it. It's with overall, there's no science. A lot of it's luck of the draw. A lot of it's roll of the dice, and you do or you don't cop injuries. Definitely need to have trades in hand coming out of those buy rounds, and you've got to, think about those buy rounds so you're at least scoring middle of the pack, and potentially better than that throughout the buys as well.
You need better than to score to be good overall. You need to score better than the middle of the pack. You need to be up the top. If you be up the top over those buys, you'll be in a good position coming out of those buys, assuming you had a good enough start at the start of the season.
Yeah, that's exactly. And then look, that's what I'm trying to do. Look, this is my my third or fourth year at Dreamteam, and I always start out looking overall, and hopefully I'm going to give it a bit of a shake-up, but I always end up as a head-to-head player. It never ends well.
Yeah. I just want to remind everybody of a few key things they should think about when playing overall these next couple of weeks. Remember to think about the money, the points, where they're going to come from. You want to get players who are scoring more points than what they're valued at. You want to make that money. You've got to be careful where you have that money stored. You don't want too much money locked up in your wing, fullback, and halves who can score erratically, unless you got Dreamteam and Cronk in the halves. That's probably the only exception I'll give you. You want to be careful in trading in too many players on one team. You want to be careful trading in too many players on that one buy round. You've got to keep an eye on those buys, even starting now, because you don't have that many trades before the buys actually start. You'll have probably 12, not 12. You've got 8 weeks for the buys start from the top of my head, 9 weeks. So you've got a maximum of 18 trades before the buys start. So be careful what you do with them. And remember, covet impetoire. Buyer beware.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, for those who jumped on the Uade bandwagon this week, part of me wants to feel sorry for you and part of me wants to laugh. It's just absolutely typical of how a winger rolls. They can be golden one week and they can be hell the next. But hopefully he pumps out his average, which is about 45 or 46 this week for you, so you can all sort of breathe a bit of a sigh of relief and feel justified in having that 300k sitting there. Now, all right, boys. Matt, have you got team lists up, mate? I reckon you've been dead quiet there, mate, so it's time for you to roll us through a few of the team lists and just if there's any major key differences.
Well, starting off, we don't have the Bulldogs. That's always a help. Storm, you just got Billy Slater, Matt Duffy, Will Chambers, Junior South comes into the lineup for Justin O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
Mahi Fauna in the back five, Gareth Woodop and Cooper Cronk in the halves, Jesse Bromwich, Cam Smith, Ryan Norrie up front, Tohu Harris, Ryan Hoffman, Ryan Hinchcliffe in the second row, and Riles, Satu, Slade Griffin, Junior Moores, and Maurice Blair right out the bench.
And Maurice Blair probably most likely to drop off there. Good to see him back named in the 18 though. He's always an option to consider and keep in the back of your mind, people, over that Origin period where he occasionally steps into that halves jersey.
I think he's also been playing second row in the New South Wales Cup in the Storm Sharks side.
Interesting.
I think, don't quote me.
All right.
There's no Dogs team sheet at the moment of the recording. Neither is any Tigers, no surprises there. The Eels, they've named Ben Roberts at 6 this week, and they've put Ken Edwards at 11. Who's he?
Duffy. Shown a lot of promise in Toyota Cup from last year, and by all accounts should score all right if he gets his live share of minutes.
Oh yeah, that's good then. Who's dropping out? There'd be nobody dropping out, would there?
Randy Matua got dropped.
Oh, Matua's injured. That's why. Yeah, sorry.
Yep. So do we have a time frame on Matua's injury?
Last I heard, it was it's possibly this week, maybe up to the next month.
So Ken Edwards could be an interesting nuffy to have in if you need to free up some cash somewhere next week after the price rises.
Yeah, sure could be.
Interesting. Okay. Titans name an unchanged side going up against the Manly Sea Eagles at Skilled. The exact same 18. And Sea Eagles, again, that looks like an unchanged side to me.
Tom Simon comes in the name at 17. So
Yep, Tom Simon's coming into the 17.
But he played last week anyway, so...
Yep, he did. So good looking side. That's going to be a really good looking match. I think I would hate to pick whichever way. You know, it's going to be under 10 points whoever wins. It's going to be a big game. Just want to throw a shout out to anybody who's involved in Dream Team. Can somebody give us Brad Takarangi as a centre option as well? He's playing centre at the Titans. I've got to say I was impressed with this kid last week. He'd get the ball and he just would not let them put him down. He really pushed hard and asked a lot of questions of the Canberra line. Mind you, in all fairness, the Raiders were asking a lot of questions of their own line as well. So maybe I'm just getting a bit excited there.
You probably are a little bit. Plus, you probably want another centre second row to go with your big collection you're collecting.
Yeah, well, you know, it's those dual position players in the long run. They give you some options and a little bit of a safety net.
They sure do.
All right, so moving on to the Roosters. Matty, any changes for the Roosters this week?
Boyd Corner comes in again, named with Aiden Guerrero dropping out, assuming to injury.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play last week, did he?
Yeah, he's got some sort of niggle.
Okay, I missed that game last week.
And Dylan Napper named as 18th man, but expected to drop off the bench.
Yeah, he should drop off again.
Broncos name an unchanged side. Justin Hodges is named at the 4, but I would stress be very, very careful with Justin Hodges and also Matt Gillette, because if Hodjo drops out at the last minute, Gillette will roll into the centre position, or is certainly hot favourite too in all the press, and Griffo seems to think, or Hook seems to think it's where he should put Gillette. An interesting point is that regardless of whether he does move into that centre position, Gillette is going to be marking up on Sonny Bill Williams and Michael Jennings, who are forming a very formidable pair down that left-hand side. Okay, Banks, you want to run us through the Sharks and Warriors, mate?
Yeah, the Sharks have named which is surprising, they've named an unchanged side from last night, which does include Luke Lewis, who is out for 2 to 3 weeks, I think, with a injury. So I would expect Hyington to step in and Wade Graham to actually start the game. And they've named Tagatese on the bench, so the 18th man, so he'll probably step into the bench on the Sunday afternoon as the Sharks go and destroy the Warriors, who have named an unchanged side. Well, it looks what yes they have.
Yeah, Ben Henry named 18th man. Just on the note of Sam Tagatese, you know, good to see him in the 18, and with Luke Lewis out, it looks like Sam Tagatese could provide some amazing value coming off the bench.
Yeah, he could do. He'll definitely add value, especially losing. We've lost Fafita's impact off the bench because he's been starting, but Tagatese could provide that extra go forward, not extra go forward, but that's the extra X factor which he can produce.
On occasion, yeah. On occasion, I was actually, I was geeing you up there, Banksy. I don't think any Dream Team coach worth his salt would bring Tagatese into his side. There'd be nightmares.
Stay away from Sam. Take it easy, okay? Take it easy.
There'd be a lot of sitting in the corner and rocking back and forth, sucking your thumb. I think if you brought Sam Tagatese into your side, you just, yeah. Even if he scores 100 this week, don't be tempted. Don't get on him.
But he's a second row centre rotation player, though.
Look, mate, even that's not even enough to convince me to jump on the Tagatese, mate. Mate, no, I'm not going to go there. We're going to remember this is a family show. Harvey, mate, can you run us through the Panthers, Rabbitohs? What are we looking at there?
The only difference to the Panthers side, ran out in the field and got beaten by the Tigers would be Lachlan Coote being taken out of the side. Tom Humble moving into the 6.
Yep.
And by the looks of the Rabbitohs have named an unchanged lineup with 3 extra players on the bench, Dave Tyrrell, Justin Hunt and Jason Clark.
Excellent. They've changed the lineup because it's Sam Burgess back, so...
Yeah, good point. That's a good point. And George Burgess in the 17. But look, really interesting... and I guess a good note for us Dream Team coaches is there's a lot of consistency in sides being named this year. You know, last couple of years we've had a spate of injuries very early on in the season, so it's good to see some consistency, and let's hope it continues. But Tom Humble coming into the six, guys, what are your thoughts on that? Is 136,000? Is he someone worth picking up, being that he is a wing fullback / half position?
God, no. He falls in the same category as Cam Taylor.
You reckon, why's that? I mean, come on, Harvey. Let's look at his time at the Tigers in 2012, mate. They made him play everywhere. He was off the bench. He was in at halfback. He was playing fullback. He was playing hooker. I mean, it's got to be hard to get a consistent sort of dream team score, but a consistent season happening when you're all over the park.
Yeah, it is. But in saying that, I personally did get burnt by him last year by happening round one, and 3 weeks later, he was no longer be seen. Put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Banksy, your thoughts on that one, mate?
Humble is the type of player that you wait 2 weeks, then you wait another 2 more weeks, on him, and you just never get him. It's easy. Just keep avoiding him. Will not the play.
And you, I mean, look, we're talking a different coach. Gus Gould obviously rates him, different coach, and that sort of thing. He's been brought straight in. There are a number of options that could have replaced Lachlan Coote in the six, and they've gone straight with Tom Humble.
They should have brought in Blake Austin. They should have.
You know, the word I'm hearing on Blake Austin is that he's in New South Wales Cup and he's just not performing. He's not up to scratch for the NRL at the moment. You know, they have got high hopes for him.
3 tries.
Yeah, look,
he kicked them to victory last match.
Look, I'm just repeating what I've heard and playing a bit of devil's advocate here. Obviously, what you've just stated makes me look like a raving loon, but that's the word I'm hearing. At least at that halfback position. But
he was playing centre too.
He was playing centre, so maybe that's the better option for him. Interestingly, Tom Humble in most of his games last year was got under 20 minutes of play. In fact, there was one particular game where he got 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Tim Sheen. So, I mean, knowing that, does that sort of change your opinion to maybe watch him for a couple of weeks, and if he's doing well, jump on him?
It could do, but still wait 2 weeks and then reassess him before he rises in price. We'll see what else you have in your team. Maybe Miller needs to go, and Humble's right there. He provides you with a switcheroo. You might have Kurt Mann down in your centres. So you win fullback. You might have Zillman down there too, or Hank.
Yeah. Fair enough. Interesting thoughts. You guys were rather vehement about don't go near Humble.
We could be eating humble pie.
Well, you could be, but it's I don't know. Like I'm not going anywhere near Humble at the moment. If he is performing, he'll present an option for me to cash out some of the other players and that once they've gained in price. But look, it definitely is amusing to me. It's rare that you two have such a vehement. In fact, Tagateezy's the only other player that I know of that you two have a vehement dislike of, and both agree to just stay clear of.
Well, you see, with Tagateezy, I do like him as a player. He always gives 100%, but I hate him as a Dream Team player because he's shit.
So, okay, now, Harvey, you've given us the politically correct answer. Could you tell us what you really think?
That's what I think. I love watching him play because he always gives 100% throughout every team he's at. He's been at many teams. But wherever he's at, he'll give 100% on the field for the 15 minutes he's playing.
Fair call. All right, let's look at what will potentially be the game of the round as far as errors and inability to score tries goes, and that's the Raiders-Dragons. Both sides the Raiders couldn't score a try, and the Dragons could only score a try. Well, let's have a look. I mean, unchanged sides here. Blake Ferguson's still out of the side.
Back.
Brett White is back, for the Raiders. Dragons unchanged from what their run-on side was. Sean Fensom in the 13. Who's going to win this?
Not the
Raiders will win it.
Actually, maybe
can't win in Canberra.
Look, maybe the better question here is not who's going to win this, but who's going to lose this match. Because I think between these two sides, what we've seen in the first 2 rounds is these guys don't win matches, they lose matches.
You're right. There's a reason why there are two bottom teams in competition along with the Warriors. If the only three teams got to win, please say I'm right. Please say I'm right.
No, you are right. You are right. The Warriors are without a win, and Raiders and Dragons are both without a win either. But the interesting thing is with the Warriors at least give it everything. You know, they fail miserably, but they try and give it absolutely everything, and they can score tries. You know, they've scored more tries than or more points than what the Dragons and Raiders have this year. So, you know, and we're only
That's
2 rounds in.
Wrong.
Is it? Is the Raiders scored just more than
2 points less?
2 points less than the Raiders.
Still plenty.
Fair enough.
Still plenty.
Fair enough. All right, I'll
They've
eat
scored
it.
the same amount of points as the Sharks have.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. But then again, you look at the competition the Sharks have been up against. They've had some quality sides,
Two of the
defensive
best
sides.
teams in the comp.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're saying that about the Titans.
They did. They deserve that rap.
Look, oh, mate, the media hate them. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. These, you know, someone's going to lose, and they will lose not because the other team has won. You know, it'll be whoever loses this match the most will, or whoever loses this match the least will walk away the winner at the moment. And you know, who's that going to be? Is it going to be the Raiders or the Dragons?
I would have to think the Dragons because they have a history of taking the lead in Canberra and then blowing them the last 10 seconds to some freaky deaky play.
Does Canberra have that freaky deaky play in them at the moment?
As long as they got somewhere that can run the ball forward, yes they do. That's all what they have to do against the Dragons at that last 5 seconds of the game. If they're up by 4 points, it's just run. They'll fall off tackles and you run right through them.
Yeah, fair.
It's a hoodoo.
It is, and it's one of the best hoodoos in the game because it's one we can almost take to the bank. All right, Monday Night Football, Hunter Stadium. We're looking Knights versus Cowboys. We're looking at Boyd, McManus, Quinn, Tahu, Uade, Mullen, Gidley, Snowden, Hilda, Fialgo, Scott, Houston, Smith for the Knights, and then on their bench, Roberts, Costigan, Rachow, and McKinnon. Interestingly, no Willie Mason.
Mason went off after 20 minutes of the castle, suspected castle. So.
Okay, well, that's a shame. He's been playing very good footy. And the Cowboys, looking at the Cowboys lineup, look, that's pretty much unchanged. Quick run through: Bowen, Graham, Tate, Linnett, Winterstein, Thurston, Morgan, Scott, Moore, Tamu, Cooper, Hall, Johnson. Interchange: Mitchell, Sims, Bolton, Tua Malolo, and Blake Leary. Notable admission: Tarek Sims. He's been dropped off that 3-man bench.
And Ryan Morgan also being, not Ryan Morgan, so Ray Thompson being injured, replaced by Michael Morgan, so no Robert Louis coming in and potentially being another cash cow on half for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so that's our team list, and hopefully you guys all have a much better week this week in Dream Team. We're going to introduce a new segment now. We're calling the Soapbox. Each week, either one of the main hosts, myself, Banksy, or Matt Harvey, or one of our guests is going to have the opportunity to jump up on the soapbox and have a bit of a rant about what grinds their gears in the NRL and in Dream Team at this point in time. Lucky for you guys, you get to listen to me fire up about the Asada investigation. Now, getting on the soapbox here, look, I'm fuming. There's an article this morning that has come out, and the head of this ACC investigation has sat there and said, we went public because we had fears for player safety that one of them was going to be injected and, you know, may die as a result of this particular injection. You then read further into the article, and he lists the 3 reasons that they went public. First one, obviously, being that fear of a player being, you know, injured or killed. A second one was they wanted to, and I quote, fire a shot across the bow of organised crime, because it's not illegal to supply these peptides, because these peptides are not illegal. They're against the ASADA regulations, but they're not illegal for, you know, you or I to walk in somewhere and pick them up off the internet or from a store and that sort of thing. But organised crime are obviously making a fair bit of money. So they wanted to fire a shot across the bow of organised crime and let them know that they were onto them for doing something that's not technically illegal. And finally, the third reason that they went public was so that they could get other players to come forward and confess to using these substances. And I'll quote it here. The third reason for going public was to get players to come forward and make self-disclosure. In other words, we've got no freaking evidence. We have a suspicion, so we're going to go public and sling a whole lot of mud and get these players to dob themselves in for doing something that may or may not be illegal at the time that they were doing it. It's an absolute witch hunt, and it's a disgrace. Now, interestingly, Lawler, who is the head of the Australian Crime Commission, John Lawler, sits there and answers the claims that, you know, it's all a bit of a political circus and a bit of a sham, that it got brought up to take Labor out of the headlines because they were struggling as a government. Interestingly, by the way, Gillard's approval rating went up when all this stuff came out, you know, a couple of weeks after it came out. There's very little evidence. Tony Abbott's coming out saying there is very little evidence to support the view that it was a black day in Australian sport. That's a direct quote from the Sydney Morning Herald. Now, they've come out and absolutely slammed our national game. And in my opinion, yeah, they've done it to get Labor off the headlines. And I don't care if you're a swinging voter, you're a Liberal Labor voter, I don't give a rat's ass if you vote for the fishing party. But whoever you vote for, they should leave our sport alone. Politics and sport do not freaking mix. You know, if you're a Labor supporter, start calling for Rudd to get back, because there's a statue in yellow with a friggin' red wig on down at my local McDonald's who could run this country better than the ranger that we've got running it right now. The NRL has taken a huge hit. And the thing is, these peptides started out in the AFL. And there's nothing in the papers, there's nothing in the media about the AFL or any of, you know, they're not investigating Essendon or anything like that. It's all about targeting the NRL. Is it a coincidence that it all happened 2 weeks before the season kicked off? Well, they'd like us to believe so, but the more information that's coming out, or the lack thereof, that ASADA actually has and the ACC actually has, I'm starting to think that there was absolutely no coincidence about it at all. So if anybody in politics is ever listening to one of our little backwater podcasts, back off, leave our sport alone, and let us get on with enjoying our league week to week.
Also.
Yep, very well said.
It's an absolute disgrace, boys. But anyway, that's me on the soapbox for this week. And anything you guys would like to add before the close of the show?
Nothing really.
I just want to make sure everybody's be wary of your trades. Just be careful what you do. Double think it before you hit that trade button. It might save you 2 trades, 3 trades down the track.
Definitely a good call. Good advice. All right, gents. Well, thanks once again for joining us on DT Podcast. And if you've got to the end of the show and had a good listen in, thank you. We always appreciate having your company. We'd do this for free. Oh, wait, we already do. We do it just because we love the DT, and we hope that we're able to give you a little bit of information that's worthwhile along the path. And until next week,